Hi everyone. So today I have something really special to talk about. It's a subject really dear to me. I will go right into the subject. So for me, the difficulty why most of us have a difficulty to accomplish yourself or to incarnate our true identity is because most of the time we either identify with the ego or let the ego control our life or let the ego block us from achieving our highest potential. And to distinguish, to help you distinguish what I mean by the ego and what I mean by who I am, I created or I invented an easy, simple mathematical formula where you, self, minus the ego equal God. What it means is that the ego, if you subtract the ego from your identity, from who you are, from who you think you are, then you will have only you equal God. And God is your highest potential. So the highest potential is already within you, it's already you. And the only thing that stops us or block us from revealing or impersonating this high potential is what's in the middle, ego. The ego contains self-sabotage, the blockage, everything that create insecurity within us. It's part of the ego. Sometimes due to trauma, sometimes due to conditioning. It can be many sources, but at the end of the day, it's the ego. And what is the ego build up? The ego is just, for me, the accumulation of conditioning. Stuff that we learn from external sources, like your society, our culture, our family, our friends, which enter our being either through our mind or through our body and create a filter from the person of who we truly are. And this, even if it's really subtle, create a distortion in the being that we truly are and unable or slow down the process of revealing the true nature of a being. So, the ego also refer as the mind, the unconscious mind, is a tool. So it's not like in the spiritual journey is often believed that we have to shut down, to suppress the ego. And as much as it's part of the journey, and the further part of the journey, we really learn that it's not about suppressing and ignoring the ego and just moving to the mountain and stay away from society, which we believe is poison and pollution, but to befriend and set back the ego to the position that it belongs to. Meaning that instead of having the ego as the captain of our life, we downshift its position to for him to become the sailor or the servant. Just like the way I interpret this, usually it's like having the ego sailing the boat of our life into the open ocean, and as much as you don't really know where you're going in life, if the ego is in charge, then I don't know, maybe he's just there to have fun and to explore, and it's all good. And when the sailor wakes up, the captain of the boat, when the captain of the boat wakes up, there's a duality that is becoming apparent. One that the ego doesn't like at first, but becomes necessary to give more meaning to the life of the ego. And so the captain, the way that the distribution of role is appropriate for living a life that's more fulfilling and meaningful, is that the captain, the true self, the inner guru within us, should direct our life. And the ego is there as a sailor, as a servant, to help us as a tool to manifest that inner calling. So it's the inner voice or the captain of our, that's within us that we have to listen to direct us toward what brings more meaning to our life. And the ego becomes necessary as a tool to help us manifest this inner calling. So both of them are necessary within us. If not, without the ego, without the mind, without the rational thinking, it's like knowing what to do but not having the tools necessary to accomplish our task. It's good that you're an engineer, say mechanic, and knowing that a piece is missing to an engine, but you need the mechanician, and you need the mechanic guy to help you, like, get his hand greasy and do the task necessary to for the well functioning of an engine. And so for us, it's the same thing. The highest mission is felt within us, and as much as when we lead our life throughout the ego, it can be fun at the beginning, but either it brings us toward more success, more wealth, more recognition, and whatever is their ego attracted based on the conditioning of mainstream society, eventually it dies dry. It means that it doesn't bring us the same fulfillment for long enough to bring meaning to their life. And that's when most people, when they indulge in wealth, when they indulge in luxury, when they indulge in everything that the modern world has to offer us, we're looking for something deeper, something more meaningful. And that's when most of us enter the quest of trying to figure out what brings more meaning to your life. And most of the time, this happens is labeled as a spiritual journey, but what we have to do is to lower the noise of our mind, the monkey mind, and to allow the voice of our intuition, of our inner guru, to reveal itself, which is already within us, but usually suppressed or buried under the loud voice of the monkey mind. And so that's why, for me, you are me, minus the ego conditioning equal God. So God is us, and that's why I feel all religion, spiritual teaching are pointing toward, is that there's not really somebody to worship, or it's more a inner calling within us that we have to be attentive to. And as much as I have nothing against religious belief and religious path of a life path, at the end it brings the same. Either way, I call it inner guru or wisdom or intuition. In religion, Allah, Buddha, or Jesus is the path beyond the conditioning ego. It might not be distinguishable from looking from the outside, but from what I've learned and read, at the end, the conclusion is the same. They're all pointing toward the same, to follow the inner wisdom that's within us, or from an external source, but tune outside of the mundane world that is the mainstream society. So how do we tame or calm down the ego? So what we have to understand is that the ego, which is manifested through the mind, which is manifested through thought, is like this camera lens that's watching me right now, for which you're being able to observe me. The movie that we can perceive through our eyes, like the same as this camera, film itself at 24 to 30 frames per second, and it's continuous. So there's images, continuous images that create the film, and those are filtered when we are following unconsciously the noise in our mind, which is conditioning. So conditioning is, for me, a repetition of information, continuous repetition of information that we've learned from external source, either parent, media, government, culture, etc. Either it's the media that say you should consume, or eat, or somebody that tells you you're not beautiful. If it's repeated long enough, constantly enough, then in the conscious mind, you start believing that information. And that's why we eat a certain way, we behave a certain way, we dress a certain way, and we accept dogma and lifestyle based on how we were taught that it was the right way to live. And as much as there's usually nothing wrong for majority of people, if it's still right enough, for minority of people, it doesn't feel right. And it's not because there's something wrong with us. I would say it's like same thing like when somebody go shopping for shoes. Is you can go shop for shoes and maybe 80% of the people will be fine with the shoes available in the store, but for a small minority, 10-20%, I don't know, I'm just making it up, it's possible that all the shoes available, all the pair of shoes, even if they have all the sizes, it doesn't feel right, maybe because your feet are awkward, but at the end of the day, some of us are just different. And as much as mainstream society try to englobe everyone, it is not everyone that can fit in the mold of the narrow mind of society that's trying to indulge it. It's high tide. The water is getting crazy. Either way, what I'm trying to say is that for some of us, none of the shoes of society, none of the career choices of society fit us right enough to feel fulfilled. We can perform, we can be good. Some can even run marathon in shoes that doesn't fit them right properly. But it's different when it starts creating pain and suffering. Then the only path is to remove those shoes, to free yourself from the dogma of society, to quit our job, quit our life, quit everything that suppresses us, and start the journey of peeling off what doesn't suit well. And at the beginning, it might be just your job, your family, or your career, and eventually you realize that you have to peel off more and more. And the reason why most people on spiritual journey continue even if it's challenging is because there's a level of freedom that is felt every time we manage to peel off subsequent layers. And that freedom is a sense of self that can be experienced for the first time for people who always been pretending something that never felt right to them. And so for me, ego or the conditioned mind is possible to be overcome when we attack its source, meaning that because conditioning is a repetition of information, what we have to do to decondition ourselves is to slow down or stop the conditioning, the new conditioning to enter our mind, and to create space between our thought. So if in our mind we have a constant thought that, oh, I have to perform, I have to make money, I have to consume, whatever is the thought that you have in your mind is a series of images or thought that seem itself and unable something that's beyond the thought to reveal itself. And if with spiritual practice, like sattvic practice, like meditation and yoga being the most popular one, we're able to create space between those thoughts, after enough practice, enough time, we're able to create enough space for something else than thought to reveal itself and show us a different way of being, of living. And that's when we realize that for, at the beginning glimpse of second, that we're not automatically controlled by our mind, by our thought, by our ego. And with enough practice, with enough self-discipline, then more space is created, and what is beyond thought, which some people label as intuition, becomes more clear, more. It's really, I think most people would believe they hear an intuition or a voice that's beyond the ego, but because it's so subtle, so small, so spontaneous, the monkey mind comes back and buried or forget about this special voice that's an inner calling that's bringing us away from the goal of the mind. Because what the mind wants is like, it's to know that there's something more beyond. The ego mind would actually be ready to give up its life, its career, and its money if it would know ahead of time that there's something more amazing, more rewarding at the end of the line. But that's not how intuition and the inner self work. Is you have to give up everything from the ego. Eventually, that's what you realize, and then you're rewarded by destiny or the feeling. And there's testimony throughout every culture, every background of life, that people give up everything, even if they believe they had everything, because it didn't resonate with them anymore, and eventually find themselves. They find something more meaningful. So that inner calling is the Saint Graal of your life, and it's really relieving when you're on the further step and more is revealed to you. But until then, it's from an external point of view, you think that those people are crazy. It's like, that's why the family will judge you. So what is the most important part is that most people can hear that intuition, but the most difficult part is to be strong enough to face adversity. Because when you have nothing to lose in life, usually it's easy to renew yourself and try a different life path or start traveling to just take a break out of your life. But when you're successful, you're rich, and you have everything that modern life thing you should have to be happy, then it's really difficult for your entourage, your family, your friend, to understand and accept the fact that you don't want this anymore and you want to let go of everything for the unknown. It's like gambling everything you have and not knowing what you get. But when you feel empty and lost on the inside, most people wouldn't care about giving up, but we fear facing the adversity coming from our friends and family, which are making us doubt our own choices. And that's what is the most challenging. And that's why I feel the spiritual journey has become easier and easier, is because as much as before most of us were alone, there's more and more conscious community around the world, where people on the healing path, on the spiritual journey, are gathering together. And as much as interaction can be sometimes superficial, just to be surrounded by people on the journey make us feel that we're not crazy, that we're not that we're not alone. And this is more encouraging than being alone and feeling self-doubt because of people around us that we love and love us, or making us doubt about how we feel on the inside. It's a subject I'm really passionate, and I feel I have so much more to add. I'm losing my voice because I feel I just need a sip of water. But I will finish with this. Without the ego standing in the way of who we truly are, we'll recognize our true value, our true potential, who we truly are. And this, no matter how you want to label, God is just one of the label that is popular, just enough to take the hard path or the strenuous path toward dissolving or at least befriending with the ego. If you have any question, please like, subscribe or comment. And if you have any question, comment in the section below and ask me any question. If you're on the journey, if you have interrogation, you're doubting yourself, feel free to reach out and I'll do my best to answer or even to make a video about it if I feel inspired with the subject. Thank you very much. I'm done.